As anticipated, Israel launched strikes at Iranian nuclear sites to prevent the consummation of their nuclear program, the development of nuclear weapons, since that presents an existential threat, an overused phrase, but an accurate one in this case, to Israel's future existence. Not surprising, Trump at the Kennedy Center event the other night was asked about the situation in the Middle East and said this.
Could you provide an update on Iran? We're hearing reports that U.S. personnel are being moved out of the region within striking distance.
Well, they are being moved out because it could be a dangerous place, and we'll see what happens. But they are being, we've given notice to move out, and we'll see what happens.
Is there anything that can be done to dial the temperature down in the region?
They can't have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. They can't have a nuclear weapon. We're not going to allow that.
They can't have a nuclear weapon. That has been Trump's position. He reiterated it. And it's worth remembering, particularly for some on the center right, including in the MAGA sphere, that Trump, in a March letter to Iran, demanded it negotiate a nuclear deal within 2 months and dismantle its nuclear assets or face military action. The first U.S.-Iran meeting happened on April 12th, and Iran has since rejected Washington and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff's proposal. So there's that backdrop, too. I'm speaking to you, Tucker Carlson, and a lot of other people that have really taken a quite hostile position towards Israel and a quite juvenile position with respect to the use of military. And we'll get to that. But first, here was Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu explaining what was done and why it was.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction. They've backed up their genocidal rhetoric with a program to develop nuclear weapons. In recent years, Iran has produced enough highly enriched uranium for 9 atom bombs. 9. In recent months, Iran has taken steps that it has never taken before, steps to weaponize this enriched uranium. And if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year. This is a clear and present danger to Israel's very survival. 80 years ago, the Jewish people were the victims of a Holocaust perpetrated by the Nazi regime. Today, the Jewish state refuses to be a victim of a nuclear Holocaust perpetrated by the Iranian regime. Now, as Prime Minister, I've made it clear time and again, Israel will never allow those who call for our annihilation to develop the means to achieve that goal. Tonight, Israel backs those words with action. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear weaponization program. We targeted Iran's main enrichment facility in Natanz. We targeted Iran's leading nuclear scientists working on the Iranian bomb. We also struck at the heart of Iran's ballistic missile program. Last year, Iran fired 300 ballistic missiles at Israel. Each of these missiles carries a ton of explosives and threatens the lives of hundreds of people. Soon, those missiles could carry a nuclear payload, threatening the lives not of hundreds, but of millions.
Dave Smith, who was platformed by Rogan, actually recently by Tucker Carlson too. I mean, he's a comedian, and he's I've seen enough of him. He's okay, somewhat. It makes somewhat interesting points occasionally, but he doesn't really know anything. Israel has launched a dangerous preemptive war of aggression. It should be condemned by the United States and U.S. citizens alike. Christina Hoff Sommers, somebody who does know something, responded, "The village idiot speaks." Yeah, that's about right.
That's good.
But by the way, Dave Smith doesn't even have the context right for you Rogan fans out there. I just gave you the context. President Trump's letter in March. So President Trump should condemn something that he warned about? Tucker Carlson predicted that in the first week of a war with Iran, which would be ushered in if Israel struck Iran's nuclear sites. The first week of a war with Iran could easily kill thousands of Americans, could also collapse our economy as surging oil prices trigger unimaginable inflation. Consider the effects of $30 gasoline. But the second week of the war could even be worse. Iran isn't Iraq or Libya or even North Korea. While it's often described as a rogue state, Iran has powerful allies. It's now part of the global bloc called BRICS, which represents the majority of the world's landmass, population, economy, and military power. Iran has extensive military ties with Russia. It sells the overwhelming majority of its oil exports to China. Iran isn't alone. An attack on Iran could very easily become a world war, and we'd lose. For more on this, please be joined by Jonathan Schanzer, Executive Director at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Previously worked as a terrorism finance analyst at the Department of Treasury. Author of Gaza Conflict 2021, Hamas, Israel, and 11 Days of War. Jonathan Schanzer, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So the statement you heard from Bibi, what's your reaction to that explanation?
It's pretty succinct. I'm here in Jerusalem now, and we were all woken up last night at around 3 in the morning. Sirens are going off. We had to go into shelters, and the news began to trickle in. And what began with isolated reports of an attack here or there on the nuclear program, we soon learned that Israel was hitting multiple sites, essentially halting a nuclear breakout, but also going after the regime's ballistic missiles. They've targeted some of the more senior military officials. They've targeted some of the nuclear scientists. This is a wide and sweeping attack. As I understand it, attacks are still ongoing right now. The Israeli Air Force is still at it several hours later, almost a half day later. And as we hear it, this could be going on now for another week or two until they say that the job is finished. This was a massive surprise to the Iranians. They thought that they were winning at the negotiating table. They thought they had outmaneuvered Trump. They thought they had outmaneuvered the Israelis. And the Israelis have obviously shown them that that was very far from the truth.
Well, how have they retaliated against you, against Israel?
So far, I've not seen anything. I have not seen one missile land in Israel. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the Israelis targeted the pre-positioned ballistic missiles. I did see that the Iranians tried to send drones toward Israel. They were shot down over the Middle East. So the Jordanians, possibly the Saudis, maybe even the Iraqis were able to target those drones before they even reached Israeli airspace. So far here, everything has been very quiet, although the spokesman for the military here has warned that there will be counterstrikes and that the country needs to be vigilant. It's been very quiet on the streets here of Jerusalem today. People are not straying too far from their shelters for that reason.
Now, just to press the issue, the assertion that Bibi made that Iran may have been months away from nuclear ballistic missiles, a year, maybe even months away, and here's their end game and so forth. We've been hearing that from administrations, Democrat and Republican alike, for some time, certainly quite a bit over the last decade. So why is the belief that, why should we believe they're so close today when we've been hearing that they've been that close for a decade?
Well, I think everyone's been watching this nuclear program. And, let's be clear. The Iranians have been taking baby steps all along the way. For the last 15 years, we've been watching the Iranians test the patience of the United States. Some administrations have reacted with appeasement. Others have acted with sanctions or even veiled threats. This time it's different. They've apparently gone a lot closer than anybody ever thought they would. As I understand it right now, the reports in Israel, anyway, suggest that the Iranians had made a decision in light of these ongoing negotiations with the Trump administration, where Trump was not yielding to their demands. They made the fateful decision to move forward with a nuclear weapon. They were about to be declared in violation of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. There was going to be sanctions that were going to be coming down on the regime, and I think they believed that this was the time to break out. And the Israelis saw it. As I understand it, there was a mutual understanding between the Israeli system and the American system that this was the red zone. And that's why the Israelis attacked. I think it is still going to be interesting to find out how much the president knew, how much Trump knew when this all went down, and whether the Israelis got help. I have not seen any indication of the latter, but certainly I can't imagine that the administration in Washington had no idea. I think they probably knew what was coming.
Well, yeah, I mean, just even what Trump said on the red carpet at the Kennedy Center, we're moving people around because we need to, essentially. I mean, that was sort of telegraphing it. His response to the news of the strikes also sounds like it was choreographed. He posted, "No more death, no more destruction, just do it before it's too late," urging Iran to make a deal. So, he sort of takes the position of the peacemaker. Israel does the dirty work. Now come in and make the deal I told you to make 3 months ago.
Yeah, I think that's right. But I think, though, that the deal at this point, there's not much of a deal for Iran to make. I mean, their nuclear program is smoldering. Their nuclear scientists are dead. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps leaders are no longer breathing. I mean, when you look around right now, it's hard for me to imagine the Iranians are going to say, yeah, here's a deal. We've agreed to end our nuclear program that's already been ended. I think the question is whether we can, force the Iranian regime to capitulate and to end the reign of terror that we have watched. I mean, When you look around these 600 days, this has been a war that Iran stoked with multiple proxies across the region.
Well, right. I mean, that's really a going forward. And Bibi made the point in his remarks, as he's made before, which is, let's not forget, this is not just Israel versus Iran. It's a significant portion of the Arab world against Iran, too. And so there's an opportunity to try. What the deal now is, as you point out, is charting a new course in the region for Iran.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I travel to Israel often. This is my third time here this year, and I was here in January and was talking to some folks in the military, and they were saying, and I didn't really think that much of it at the time, but they said, we have an opportunity right now with Iran being weak, with all of its proxies being weak, we have an opportunity to change the map of the Middle East, to chart a different course in history. And I said, yeah, that sounds like big words here. But I got to say, after last night, what we're watching right now, it looks like we're on that path right now. If the Israelis can just finish the job, do it cleanly, and have a lot more leverage with the Iranians as we look toward the future.
So how do you think Hamas is going to respond to this, since they're backed by Iran?
Oh, I mean, Hamas is, of course, angry, but they don't have much to fight with. And that's kind of the point here, is that Hamas is weak, Hezbollah is weak. All those Shiite militias in Syria, they're no longer. I think the one that I'm worried about are the Houthis. They're the ones that have the ballistic missiles. They may try to pop off a few of those at Israel, and we'll see that air defenses activate if that's the case. But I must say that if you're an Iranian proxy right now and you're looking at what happened last night, you might begin to wonder whether you're still on the right side. And I hope that there's a psychological impact here of the attacks in Iran that begin to deter some of these proxies from waging this war against Israel and really so many other Arab countries, as you note, around the Middle East.
Yeah, that's a good point. The reaction, the reaction I mentioned from Tucker Carlson and others to the prospect of this, now that it has come to be. I get the criticisms of neocons, and I share some of them, but you can swing so far away from that you're also in a relatively not sensible position. Sort of a appeaser. The way they talk is almost like the way that sort of these UN globalists talk, ironically. They treat Iran like it's part of some fictional community of nations. That you always hear this phrase from the international diplomatic types, the Council on Foreign Relations, community of nations. And as George Will pointed out long ago, I don't know how, Eritrea and Iran are in community with the United States. It's like saying, I got a Tren de Aragua neighbor to my left, and I got a Chinese Communist Politburo member to my right. We're part of the same community. No, we're not. Because if you don't have a shared ethos, then you don't have a community. And that's the way I'm sort of reacting to some of the hysterical comments, really, by those who define themselves when it comes to America's global leadership as not neocons, which doesn't provide the level of detail I like in the definition of a position.
Yeah, I mean, I got to say, I think when people throw the word neocon around, I don't even know if they know what they're talking about, if they know what their critique is. I mean, I think we can learn the lessons of the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War, the idea that we want to, try to turn Middle Eastern countries into democracies at the point of a gun. I think we've learned our lesson there, that was really not a success. But not defeating our enemies when they threaten us, that is silly. And I do think that this new trend of neo-isolationism needs to be examined. I do understand the need to reserve American power for, perhaps an ultimate showdown with the Chinese, in 2 or 5 or 10 years' time. And I understand why we would need to keep our powder dry. But preventing Iran from going nuclear seems to me like an American value, seems to me like something that most Americans would agree with. I do question the motivations of people like Tucker Carlson. I do wonder what it is that is driving him. I worry about foreign influence. I worry about an ideological position that is not necessarily driven by the ultimate needs of this country.
Jonathan Schanzer is the executive director, Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Previously worked as a terrorism finance analyst at Treasury. Also the author of Gaza Conflict 2021, Hamas, Israel, and 11 Days of War. Jonathan, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Anytime.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
Chicagoland certified financial planning professional Tim Stearns discusses taxes in retirement.
Most people are paying more in taxes and keeping less of their money to live and do what they enjoy. That's why we've put out the retirement tax bill calculator online. You can see with your own eyes just how much you might be overpaying. It's a valuable tool, $500 value, but we made it free for you to view and run your own numbers at MVPCFP.com. That's MVPCFP.com.
To run your retirement tax bill calculator, go to MVPCFP.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Cornerstone Securities, LLC.
On this podcast, Alex Marlow brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests.
Biden was deteriorating. He was of decreased mental function. He did have major physical damage.